Hey there, all you Tier Talk fans and keepers of chaos. Russ Hamilton here. So, I was out there doing my thing, running around various different forums and stuff, all having to do with corrections and stuff, of course. And, I'm just kind of tripping over some things out there. Just some situations, some things some people are saying, some of which don't quite sit well with me, some of which that I want to try and help explain to some people. And so basically, this little video is about words. All right. So anyway, words mean things in case you don't know, right? And specific words mean specific things, and different words have different flavors. And some words are used to get over on other people. Well, that's one of the things that happens to us in corrections a lot, is these words that are used to get over on us, or that are used in ways that are not exactly conducive to corrections. And so that's what I want to delve into. That's what I want to talk to you about. And hold on just a second. Got some really handy dandy notes here. I can barely read my own handwriting, but hell, it is what it is, right? So we're going to delve into these things right here. We're going to delve into euphemisms, disrespect, jargon, and dysphemisms. So anyway, here we go. We're going to get busy. We're going to delve into all of these things, and just bear with me. And what I'm hoping to achieve here, really, the end result that I really want to see, is I want to give people some words and concepts that they can use to fight the good fight, and to bring people to our side, and to, stamp out some of these stupid myths and nonsense that gets started, especially at some of the higher levels up in corrections. So let's get with it. So really, the whole genesis of this particular video got started when I was in a room, and some people were discussing some things that were going on in their various departments. And in one of them, this particular department had decided that it was going to call inmates, people in our care, I guess PIOCs, if you were going to, just do the anagram thing. And then, we've all seen, other places. Well, you know what? We're going to call them clients. Client? Really? Because that kind of means a voluntary relationship. So that one's really stupid. Residents, for instance? Well, yeah, I guess they're kind of residents. But that still sounds stupid. Why do we got to stop calling them inmates? Is there really a good reason? I don't know. So that's what was being said. Then someone had to jump in, and this is always I don't care what they're called. Just give me my paycheck. And I'll tell you something. I can admire a hard ass, right? But a hard head, really? I mean, not giving any thought to it, just, give me my paycheck, right? Nothing, everything with that guy, superficial. It's all on the surface. There's nothing to delve deeper into. And so, I always say that, corrections is really a thinking man's game. It really is. You got to be, smarter to keep these inmates from getting over on you. You got to be smarter to make those busts. You got to be smarter to be able to preempt and, stop things like escape attempts or riots or stuff before they get started. And that's mostly what you see in corrections. You see some really dedicated staff that have the abilities to do these high-end things. And, we don't get talked about all that much. Just kind of, those guys down there in the front lines, kind of denigrated sometimes by, even people above us. But I digress. So anyway, I really started thinking about, what it is. Why do so many officers have this gut reaction to that particular terminology, to the whole thing about, they're clients, or they're people in our care, they're residents, they're whatever it is that they are, right? And, it didn't seem like any of them were really having anything but kind of, an instinctive dislike for this thing. So started, mulling it over some, and I finally thought that, well, I think what it is that they know that this is really a, euphemism. All right. This is a way that we're kind of, taking away the more bad meaning of inmate. And so is that necessarily a bad thing? Well, that's kind of where the whole fight really is, right? And, there's people out there, the do-gooders, right? Who, just think that, if we just take that away, then everything will just be bright as rain. That's not the case. It's really probably not going to change anything, or I'd be the first one to say, yeah, we should do it. But let me tell you what I think that it will change. I think that what it tends to do is it tends to blur the line between us and them. Now, is this an us versus them kind of thing? Is that the way corrections should be? Well, I don't think that it's necessarily that it should be that way, but there's some facets of it that have to be that way. We don't want any of our staff to mistake what their role is. We don't want any of our staff to be pulled out of their prescribed role and into that situation where they feel like they're at a level with these individuals, right? Because they're not. You are in charge of them. They are in your care. It is up to you to be that professional. And when we start blurring those lines, what kind of things happen? Manipulation, right? If you could be pulled out of that prescribed role, and that's a term, I love that term that Anthony Ganji came up with, right? If you can be pulled out of that role, then you can be co-opted or corrupted even into doing all kinds of things that you shouldn't be. Things that are potentially criminal, things that you could lose your job over, things that you could lose your job over. Did I just say that? Things that could cause you to lose your liberty. All right. So we don't want that. Now, is that the be all end all of it? Well, it's not. But then why are they playing these word games? Why do they feel that this is such an important issue? Right? They're trying to blur the lines. They're trying to give the inmates the impression that, hey, you guys are really good guys after all. Not sure that's a game that we should be playing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do things that are able to rehabilitate them, but we should put ourselves in a position where we always know what the right distinctions are. So when you start coming in and you start blurring those lines for staff, and you're not the ones down there in the trenches dealing with this stuff, you're not the ones down there, who understand how important these things are. Look at the fact that we wear a uniform. Why is that? All right. That's to convey upon us a sense of authority. It's to convey upon them the sense of our authority over them. Now that sounds kind of bad, but it's not. We have to have that. We have to be in a position that we do have authority over them so that we can stop very dangerous events from happening. So this whole idea that just give me my paycheck. I don't care what you call them, people in our care, people in our custody, clients, residents, what have you. No. Words mean things, right? And so when we take that euphemism, what if we decided to call them, we're not going to call them inmates. We're going to call them heroes. You begin to see where we go, where we're moving from one end of the gradient to another. And it's not helpful, especially in this game, this psychological game that we play all the time. So that is some of my thoughts to you. That's to give you guys the concepts, to give you the words in order to, actually explain this to other people, because this is where I want to go with, remainder of my life that there is. I'm done. I'm retired from corrections, but there's still ways I can contribute. And telling 100 people or 1,000 people the ways to be able to, inform and describe and pass on this kind of knowledge, to be able to pass on these kind of concepts, that's what I'm hopefully able to do in a video like this. So we're going to come back to the next little section of it, and I think you're going to find that very revealing as well. So this is going to be probably one of the most popular subjects out there. Popular may not be the exact word I'm looking for, but it's certainly in ways controversial. But I'm going to tell you what I think the controversy is versus this. And this is, just a form of disrespect that's leveled at each and every one of us all the time, especially by the media, because the media is made up of what? They're made up of journalists. What are journalists supposed to know? Journalists are supposed to know words, right? So, I think you guys probably already guessed what this one is. All right. This is correctional officer versus prison guard. So, when we first take a look at that, and we think about, okay, the reason that we keep getting called prison guards is because of the media, because they're the ones that shout that out every chance they get, right? And you know what? At least in the continental United States, and I'm pretty sure in Canada, there are no government titles that include the term prison guard at all, as far as I know. And I've researched it a lot more than anyone else I know. So I think it's safe to say there are no prison guards in North America. All right. So I think that, the journalists, they're supposed to know that too. So what do? Well, they don't like us very much, right? Journalists, man, they are agenda driven. It's all politics out there these days. So what do? They disrespect us. And it's just their little dig because, they really can't quite be really open about it. So they're just going to, they're going to put that tag on there. And they're going to say prison guard. All right. So once again, I was in another forum. Well, I'm in forums all the time where this comes up. And some guy out there, what is he? He's not a hard ass. He's a hard head, though. Right? Like I said before. And I don't care what they call me. Just give me my paycheck. Okay. In this one particular forum that I was in, this guy, he pretty much says that about the paycheck. And then he mentions the person that brought this up. And that person, they're just butthurt. All right. Yeah. On that one, he kind of had a little bit of a point because, there was a lot of bluster and just, oh, I hate that. You know what? We don't need to be in that frame of mind. But I do think that we need to take disrespect when it's shown us and educate and inform those journalists, right? We should be doing that. We should be asking them to have their due diligence on what their job requires, right? Which is supposed to be fair and accurate, right? So at least let's go to the accurate part, all right? Since there are no titles that include the term prison guard, let's at least see if they can, call us correctional officers. Right? Or correctional deputies, whatever that particular case may be. I think that's where most people, some are maybe detention officers. I was for a little while, for a couple of years, I was a senior juvenile correctional officer, kind of a long bit there. I'm sure they could shorten it down without hurting anybody's feelings too much. But let's make sure that we demand that respect. All right. So, but what does it matter? Okay. Here's where it does matter, right? We've gone out and earned these titles. We've gone out and we've paid our dues with regards to getting the training required and stuff. So every little bit that we let just slide past us like that, every little bit that just goes to try and denigrate us, right? We're not getting enough of that back to move on, to get the chains moved down the field, to do the things that we need to do so that we get things like status. I mean, every correctional officer in the United States should have peace officer status as far as I'm concerned, right? All right. We should get the best training possible for what we do. There is a lot to this job, and it's damn dirty and it's damn dangerous. All right. So we want that as well. We want the best equipment possible. I see too many of y'all that don't even have pepper spray. All right. Let alone a baton, let alone a vest. Yeah, we all need vests, right? Does everyone out there have a couple of chemical munition grenades? I did. I was lucky in that respect, right? Handcuffs, keys, radio. The whole 9 yards, right? That's what everyone deserves. Have me my Monadnock expandable baton. It was a great tool. All right. Saw all kinds of people save the day with that device, right? So, it really does pay for us to be perceived, in a professional light. And that prison guard term, that doesn't cut it. Correctional officer, or better yet, correctional peace officer, wherever we can get that put out to. Right? So that's where we want to bring the argument too. And that's why I bring you these words. That's why I bring you these concepts, right? Because, that guy who's just give me my paycheck. Okay. That's not cutting. That's not helpful. That's fine for him, right? But there's a lot of us that want to move things forward. All right. So we're going to go on to the next little part right now. All right. So this next little bit going to be pretty short, I think, but I just kind of entitling this one jargon, right? And it's just because I think that we need to talk a little bit about jargon, and we need to think about our own complacency with regard to it and how it can come back and bite us in the ass if we're not careful. All right. I did a quick little article that I've sprinkled throughout the interwebs a little bit, but I think it's good to touch on it here and now, right? And this one, it's kind of a little bit of the same thing as euphemism, but instead of one or two words, this is a whole series of words that get strung together, and you put it in your report to make that thing sound good. All right? So what am I talking about? Well, the inmate I took and I grasped his arm and I guided him to the ground, or I guided him to the wall. Okay, so at some point in the distant past, somebody thought that this sounded better than I grabbed his arm and I forced him to the ground, right? And so, we thought, what? Let's play fun games with words, and maybe we won't win any stupid prizes with it, right? So the reason I bring that up is because, something on this, someone attacks you especially or something, right? And you have to defend yourself, and then you want to file charges on the guy, and you file those charges, and then the jury gets to read your report where you guided him to the ground and he bounced a couple times. All right. You see how that's maybe not going to be too cool, because maybe everything else you told the jury was bullshit too. Could be. All right. There's no reason to do that. Some of us have worked in some of these environments where there is zero tolerance for lying, and something like that could actually get you fired. Become a good report writer. Be able to justify what you do using policy, procedure, and case law and state law. All right. It's as simple as that. You don't have to go, trying to sell it to everyone. Just tell what you did. All right. Same thing could go with if you were asked to give some sort of deposition or signed paperwork, on something that ended up civilly, because you hurt an inmate or something. Well, it could happen, right? And do you want to look like a jackass because you wrote some words like that and then the video comes out or someone else describes it as differently? No, be true to your report, right? You're justified in what you knew. You know what your policies are. You know what your procedures are. You know what state law says. All right. There's no need for that kind of bullshit. And I don't care what supervisor tells you different, right? Write it right. And don't write anybody else's heat. They should be writing their own heat. I wouldn't come to anyone and say, hey man, can you kind of help me clean this up? Well, we're going to clean it up by telling the truth. All right. Because sometimes things happen in the heat of battle. All right. If you just go and look at what the Supreme Court says, not every push and shove is a violation when you're talking about it in the safety of the judge's chambers. They know that. The Supreme Court said it. Go look up that phrase. Not every push and shove, and then type in Supreme Court of the United States. See what it has to say about that. All right. So let's not play word games like that, right? And we're going to come up on the next segment right now. So another couple of words that just kind of grind me are these two, and it's respect and disrespect. And kind of a third word too, rapport. All right. So let's start with respect and disrespect. All right. So every now and again, I'll see someone in one of these forums or something. They start talking about how much the inmates in their pod or their area, their yard or whatever, respect them. Right. And they give me respect because I give them respect. All right. Got to be careful, people. Got to be very, very careful, right? Because you're being played. There's no doubt about it, right? Now, is it along the lines of something that's going to completely co-opt you, corrupt you? Probably not. But what game is being played? All right. Yeah, you're maybe kind of maybe going a little soft on the searches now and then. You're letting them get away with a little bit of contraband. Nothing too serious. All right. We've all let things slide here and there. But you're convinced, and this is the difference, right? You're convinced that this is respect. I'm letting them slide. I'm giving them respect. I mean, what is this game? What is this facet that you've just bought into where you think that you not doing your job is somehow respect? It's manipulation. All right. Pure and simple. There's no doubt about it, right? Now, you might, sometimes let some things slide a little bit just for the moment, just to keep the peace, just because, at that moment in time, you've got bigger fish to fry. I understand that. All right. But you better not be thinking it's about respect. You better not be trading, a little bit of less hassle or being able to crack a joke with an inmate, instead of having tension between you. Better not be, trading on that kind of a platform, right? That's why I always say, and people don't like this when I put this way, but what is it about an inmate that you're actually respecting? I mean, truly, is there something there to respect? They're a drug dealer, they're a murderer, they're a rapist, they're a pimp, they're a B&E artist. So what is it that we're respecting again? The word is not the right word. Like I say, the word is about courtesy. The word is about professionality. The word is about, I don't like this one because it really doesn't truly fit, but we're still going to throw it out there a little bit. Kind of a faux, we'll put faux before it. That'll make it okay. Faux dignity. All right. Inmates all the time. Why you disrespect me? Coming up in here and searching my stuff. Well, I'm supposed to search your stuff. Am I disrespecting you when I tell you to get on the ground because you just attacked someone because you just stabbed Fulio over here? And that's seen as disrespect? These are word games that inmates play. These are word games that they use to, once again, what I talked about before, take you out of your prescribed role. Where you're no longer the correctional officer. Hell, you're not even the hall monitor. You're their peer. And, you guys are discussing respect and disrespect. And now you have no power to do anything about it because you've frittered it away for a quid pro quo, my respect for your respect. It's stupid. So don't go out there and tell me my inmates respect me. Oh, because they don't. They really don't, right? The other one that I talked about before is, well, I like to build rapport with my inmates. You know what? That rapport lasts as long as until you have to put your foot down on something, right? There is no rapport there, right? You can do things where you can build a communication bridge, but the instant you put your foot down, that communication bridge, boom, and suddenly you're disrespecting them and this and that, right? So don't sell yourself a bunch of bullshit, right? Now, if you have to use that word respect because you're talking to an inmate and you want to play the same word games as them, man, have at it. I'm all about that. But don't buffalo yourself into believing that this is true respect because it doesn't have any legs to it. It's not going to get up and march anywhere, and it's only going to last until they can't manipulate your ass anymore. So anyway, words mean things, right? So it ain't about respect. Might be about disrespect. Might be about rapport, which I think is just a poor excuse for not doing your job. I used to have a supervisor. I'm building rapport. These guys, they tell me stuff all the time. There's trouble out on the tier tonight. I couldn't see that just by a look out here. And you're paying them off by giving them back the contraband that we took. Man, talk about manipulation, right? Is that the kind of manipulation where someone loses their job? Probably not. Not bringing in stuff. He's just being a dumbass because he doesn't know he's being played over a bunch of stupid stuff. But he's being manipulated. Maybe that's as far as they can manipulate him. Maybe it's not as far as they can manipulate him. Anyway, this is Russ Hamilton. Hope you like this segment too. All right. I have entitled this portion Dysphemisms. All right. If you can say it 3 times fast, you're golden, right? Dysphemisms, dysphemisms, dysphemisms. All right. So anyway, it's a pretty easy word. Just say it a few times, right? And it just means to take something that's innocuous and not so bad sounding and make it sound horrible. All right. Well, where do we see that today? Again, from our good friends, the journalists. All right. So what do? What are they taking and something that's innocuous and really not so bad and kind of helpful, and they're making it sound horrible? All right. You hear the terms they use. All right. Isolation, solitary confinement, deprivation of senses. All right. To which I say, seg, administrative segregation, where none of those things exist. There's nobody who's isolated. There's no one that doesn't have human contact, which is what they mean by solitary confinement, right? There's no one in there that doesn't have interactions with other inmates, other officers, other people in our care, right? That's not going on. And yet, in places like New York, they're actually passing laws against it, all right? Because they're going to try and take that away. Someone can go and assault you and kick your ass and, get medically cleared to go right back to their bunk. Without any penalties, without any accountability. All right. You think that there's officers out there saying, I don't care what they call it. Just give me my paycheck. People, we're losing the fight on these things. All right. All of the stuff that I've mentioned. All right. And you know what? Some of it really truly may not be all that big. It may not be all that nefarious. But over time and over the course of the entire game, right? It adds up to a lot of yardage. All right. So what we want to do is we want to be able to be informed. We want to be able to take and carry the ideas, carry the concepts, carry the words out there so that we can say them. And so that when we're talking to, maybe your cousin who's a journalist, God forbid, right? You know what? Solitary confinement, isolation, sensory deprivation. Oh my God, none of that's happening. All right. We want to be able to, speak the truth, and we want to be able to hold inmates accountable, and we want to be able to be safe as we go about our duties. So that means to take and put some of the bad guys in the jail of the jail, right? To be able to manage them until they're either ready to go back out amongst the population or until their sentence in that seg or that SHU unit or what have you is up. And in some cases, that might be never. And there's some people out there that cry over people like that. And well, you know what? Maybe it is a shame. Maybe it's really sad, but that doesn't mean we should let them out. It doesn't. When we see all of the violence that's been, propagated against us, over the decades and the centuries, why does someone want to do that to us? We need to be pushing these politicians. We need to be talking to them. We need to be espousing these words that we use, the words that are in our favor, and the concepts that back them up to be able to take the fight to them. All right. Sitting back, just say, I just want my paycheck. I don't care what you call me. I don't care what you call the inmates. I don't care if you call it SEG or if you call it Candyland. All right. Again, there we are. The big, hard ass versus hard head. All right. Take the hard ass any day over the hard head who's never going to understand the depth of the game. All right, everyone. I hope that you like this little presentation. I hope you'll give it some thought. I hope you'll take the words and concepts and pass them on and have discussions about this stuff. It's worthwhile. This is Russ Hamilton. I'm signing off. Stay safe. Stay frosty. Don't let complacency bite you in the ass.